we've got here with us Dan Allen from WXUT. How you doing, Dan?
Get it.
Absolutely. So just looking ahead, first of all, well, actually, let's look back before we look ahead. Toledo's basketball, what's been kind of the story of the season for you guys? Take us through it a little bit from your perspective.
Story of the season for Toledo has honestly been it's been a roller coaster ride. Honestly, as you know, a lot of players had left. Our whole roster practically had to be redone. Players like Javen Simmons and Bryce Ford left for different teams such as Ohio and Arizona State. So we basically had to rebuild in a sense. And Coach Todd Falchuk has done a really good job with that. Transfers like Austin Parks and Sean Craig, and also a great freshman class led by Leroy Blyden Jr. has been really good. It took some time to mesh, for the players to mesh, especially with the close games against South Alabama and Marshall, both at home. But after that, we kind of found a groove, and personified in MAC play has been the overall grit that this team has showed, being down double digits in multiple games. Point stands with Western Michigan and Ohio. They were down double digits in both those games, and they came back and won Ohio by an outstanding margin. So,
yeah,
this team showed a lot of fight, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. In particular, one standout one, I don't know that signature loss is a phrase that people would say very often, but, just a 3-point margin with Kent State. Kent State always going to be one of the powers in the MAC, and certainly so this year as well. That's a Toledo team that's competing well with the best among the conference.
Yeah, Toledo from what I have seen, because granted, second year here, but I've been watching them for a decent bit of time. Toledo's always been competing up there at the top of the MAC for a good bit ever since I believe 2022, 2023. I think they've been up there. They won 4 straight regular season MACs, and they've been competing up there for a reason. What's to say they can't keep that tradition going?
For sure. Have you felt at all? I know, in our coverage of Bowling Green, our kind of analysis has been like, the team's been a little bit streaky. They've played close. We had Bowling Green a 3-point loss to Kent State of their own, and then a 10-point loss at Akron that was much closer until some, kind of questionable decisions offensively maybe in the waning minutes of that one. Kind of had a bit of a get-right game yesterday, an 85-79 result against Eastern Michigan. And I think it's kind of just the story of mid-major basketball, especially in the MAC. You're not going to be able to preserve that continuity from season to season for the most part. You're going to get guys to stay. Bowling Green was lucky enough to retain, a guy like Javante Campbell, who, could have probably been playing at some other stops. But have you seen that streakiness, or do you think this team has, kind of dialed in on their identity in MAC play here?
I feel like it's a mix of both. Honestly, they've been streaky in senses where they couldn't hit a shot to save their life. But there's also the times where they've combined as like a cohesive unit and have balled out. I personally went to the Michigan State game back in December, and granted, it's Michigan State. It's a Big Ten school. They were ranked number 9 of the nation at the time of the game. Obviously, you're gonna have that streakiness issue there, but they played a lot better in the second half. They showed the grit and tenacity that I like to see out of Toledo. I also look at games against Western Michigan, for example, that 84-79 win to kick off MAC play, with Blyden scoring 36. Then I also look at other contributors like Vanderjagt had in the games against Central Michigan and Northern Illinois had. Led the team in scoring in back-to-back games with 23 and 18. They rely on each other perfectly well. That's why all our starters are scoring over 10 points a game.
Yeah, that's something that I think until kind of recently, Bowling Green's Meyer Wall has really been kind of exploding in the scoring lately. And actually the Falcons against Eastern Michigan had 5 different players in double figures scoring. But kind of prior to that game, I would say, and maybe another good performance from Meyer Wall, it's been mostly, more than not, kind of a one-man leading the charge scoring for the Falcons. Definitely seems like a strength there for the Rockets, having a lot of guys who can get the rock in the basket consistently.
Yeah, it is a strength that I like. I mean, granted, all of our starting lineups, I'm going to go from top to bottom in terms of points per game. We have 17.5, 15.5, 13, 11, and 11. That's the points per game for all of our starters.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
go
just want
ahead.
to keep going.
No, go ahead.
All right. And I look at BG as well. You guys have some great scorers here. You have Javante Campbell, easily your best player, averaging 18, 5, and 5, with, I think, one of the top stats of the nation with 3.3 steals a game. I know he was up there leading the nation at one point in time in steals, which is great. Great for the Mac. You get the appearances. You get people looking at you that way. It's like, wow, what is this guy doing to get the 3.3 steals a game? You also have 13, 12 and a half, and 11 from in your other double digits as well. It looks to be both a strength for you guys, and it's a strength for Toledo. The clash when they play each other this Saturday is actually going to be like, okay, how are we going to stop these? How are we going to stop these scores from getting to that season average?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that question as well. You know, in the limited amount of Toledo games I've watched this season, that's why you're here as the expert on Toledo men's basketball. It does seem like more of the weakness for this Toledo team is the defense, and especially because, you know, you have your starting five. They've pretty much been the starting five for the entire season, it's obviously foul trouble can be a problem sometimes. I've noticed Toledo does not foul too much. Bowling Green, a very good free throw shooting team. They shoot a lot of them as well. They draw fouls very well, especially Javante Campbell, his driving ability. Meyer Wall against Eastern drew a ton of fouls, especially on three-pointers. Just how have you felt about defense this season for Toledo? How big of a concern is that for you? And just going into this Bowling Green game against a team that draws fouls, we're imagining a high-scoring affair. Do you feel the same?
I feel like defense will always be a concern. Defense will always be a concern. Everything is going to be a concern when you're playing your crosstown rivals. Essentially, I felt the same way back when I was in high school when I had to play Genoa or playing crosstown rivals. You're always going to have that worry. It's like, okay, what are we going to have to do, and what is going to be our problem, so that way we can prevent them from exploiting it. The defensive side is like it's mainly up and down. I love the defense that our guards have shown. Sonny Wilson and Leroy Blyden Jr. They have been really good at the defensive. I'm more concerned about post more than anything. Granted, our last game against Kent State, I had to look this up because I sadly could not be in Kent for that. But apparently, everybody was just getting fouled out of their mind. I'm pretty positive I had at one point, I think, Minor, Strong, Wilson, Blyden. I know multiple people had 3 fouls, and we weren't even halfway through the second half. Now I don't know if that's because of the refs were calling everything out of the minor, or it was just that physical. I couldn't tell you. But if you get into that foul trouble, that's where you rely on your depth pieces. You got to rely on that. Like for us, it's a wing. For us in the post, it's Jalen Owinga. For us in the guards, it's Will James Jr. and Minor Strong. You got to rely on those guys to help you out there.
Yeah, definitely need to lean on the depth in those kind of situations. You know, we were briefly recapping the last game for men's basketball before you called in here, and something we talked about that Bowling Green's kind of been able to work their way out of is there was a time when Sam Towns, kind of the primary option as a big man, gets into foul trouble, and suddenly you're just lacking his presence late game because you can't really afford him fouling out, and you don't have other guys stepping up as much in that department. And over at least the last game, that seems to be an area that Bowling Green has shored up a little bit, and I think something that they may be better suited to take advantage of, kind of their big man matchups than they were, maybe a week or a couple weeks ago. What do you think for Toledo to win this game? What do you think is going to be the biggest key for you guys, or who, if it's, a specific player?
For me personally, like with the overall team key for this game, this has been a problem all year for Toledo. I will say this: you got to get your bench involved. Like, for crying out loud, you guys are probably dead last in the MAC in terms of bench points. But also the fact that your post defense has to be there. You have Sean Craig and Parks, not the biggest body people, but Sean Craig is, I think, more, from what I've seen, more physical than Austin Parks, and I've personally seen Austin Parks play before he transferred to Toledo. I saw him play one time at Ohio State. I saw him all over the AAU team when he was with Ohio Buckets when he was in high school at St. Mary's. He's got to turn to that physicality. I want him to be more physical in the post, not to foul, but just be like a presence there. You're 6'10" for a reason. Use it. But also the fact that we just got to get to the team itself. Just got to get to their spots, and they just got to make their shots. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Then by what you see from, you look at Bowling Green and so many players that have started and affected the games and a lot of different players that have had a lot of good games. I think it's safe to say maybe a slightly better bench than Toledo has as a whole. Who do you look as maybe the biggest threat to Toledo men's basketball? You mentioned the post quite a bit. Is it going to be Sam Towns or Troy Glover in their posts, or is it going to be somebody from the outside looking in?
I honestly think that the two biggest threats for Toledo. Well, sadly, I haven't watched much of BG games. I mean, I'll ditto what you said about watching limited Toledo games. I've watched limited BG games, and that's what you guys do here. But I personally think that not only is Javante Campbell is going to be a threat. He's shooting 50% from the field and 78.5 free throw, while scoring 18, 5, 5, and 3. That's always going to be a threat. And I personally want to see how either Wilson or Blyden handle him. But I also want to see, like you said, Glover. I'm more concerned about Sam Towns here as well. 12.5 and 6, 12.5 points, 6 rebounds. Mm-hmm. With 2 assists and a steal to boot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen BG play much, but judging by his frame, 6'9", 200 pounds, he seems to be a very impressive post presence.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of dependent. It could kind of relate to the version that you get, because Sam Towns, always an interior threat, but it's also safe to say he's a little streaky, particularly scoring-wise, he can be streaky. I mean, in the early season against some softer competition, he went 8 games in a row with, or 7 games in a row with double-digit figures, including 27 at Kansas State, and a big upset win for the Falcons, kind of one of their signature wins of the year. A couple other double-figure games, 19 against Chicago State, 16 against Ohio in the MAC opener, 24 against Miami, probably his best game of the season, I would argue.
Yeah.
But then since then, 9 at UMass, 13 at Kent, 7 at Akron, 5 against Eastern Michigan. So it could kind of go either way. A little tendency to be kind of streaky, but I also feel like in the same vein, he might be due. And, obviously both teams have a game this week prior to Saturday's contest. But, if there's a game you're going to show up for, you best believe that it's going to be the rivalry one. I don't think, even though it's not the gridiron, I don't think that either coach lets their locker room take this one lightly.
Oh, either coach will not give it. It doesn't matter if they're playing football, basketball, baseball, or track. You're going to get if you're the coach of the team, you're going to have to get them locked in for that game. And also for that same way, streakiness can be used for Toledo. So I look at Austin Parks as you're talking about Sam Towns. He said like his best overall game was against a big upset win against Kansas State, which I was actually shocked when I noticed that you guys beat Kansas State, because they're always in like competitions for like the top of the Big 12 in the big tournament. That's really good for them. But I look at Austin Parks. I've seen games where he dropped 27 points and 10 rebounds. I've seen 15 and 11. Just recently against Kent, he had 16, 3 and 4, but he also fouled out of that game. I look at games where Ohio, he had perfect shooting, 5 to 6 shooting. He had 13 and 5. He's had 13 and 5, 15, 10 and 5. 13 and 5. He's always been consistent in like the rebounding department, but he's just got to get more scoring. Because I look at other games like here against Oakland, he had 6. Against Michigan State, he had 4. Against Lords, he had 8. Western Michigan, he had 2. Well, granted, he got injured in that game, so I can't really say much about that.
Right.
He ended up getting a cut on the lip. If I'm pretty positive.
Not when you see every day.
No, not really, especially when it comes from a flying elbow.
Yeah, but go ahead.
If Toledo is able to come away with a win against Bowling Green, how do you think that would shape the rest of their season?
Oh, it'll give them I feel like it would give them a boost they would need to like keep going. They have more momentum. I mean, you just came off of a thriller against Ohio, but not Ohio, Kent State, where you just came up short. Granted, you have a game against UMass first on Tuesday, but then if you get a big win against your crosstown rival, you then have to face teams like Akron, Ball State, and then a rematch with Kent State again.
Yeah, and then
Akron and Kent State are at the top of your conference, up there with Miami of Ohio.
right, yeah, and then if Toledo loses that game, conversely, how do you think that would, would it have a real big negative effect on the season, or do you think they would view that as like a chip on their shoulder?
I think either way, whoever wins, it's going to be like there's pros and cons to winning and losing. There's pros and cons here. The con if you lose is obviously you lost against your town rival. They're going to have the bragging rights until you guys meet up again. It's February 14th. But between that time, you have 4 games. You have like 5-6 games against them. Four. Sorry, I can't speak.
You're good.
4 or 5 of them are conference games.
Yeah.
You have to use that. You have to go in with a chip on your shoulder. You're like, okay, no more mistakes, and you got to go.
Yeah, it's kind of a not so much back to the drawing board, but like, okay, we let this one get away. Can't do that again. Tones that for the rest of the season. It's like, it's not the worst thing for either team. You know what I mean? If you win, that's huge and you're fired up. And if you lose, I mean, that's all the motivation you could need. But I think it's also interesting because I would argue, barring a result this week, because I don't know how Toledo versus UMass is going to go. I don't know how Bowling Green, Western Michigan is going to go. But for either team, there's a strong case that it's their best win of the year, especially when you consider the rivalry. Both of the teams, their best win right now is arguably the Ohio win. I guess you could say the Kansas State game for Bowling Green, but it's not a MAC game. And to be honest, I don't care as much about it because it's not a MAC game. So, I mean, at least in terms of the conference, it'd be your best conference win for either team, arguably. I know Ohio's ahead of Bowling Green right now. That could, look different come Saturday, depending on what happens this week. So, all that to say, I think there's a lot of momentum to be gained by the winner of this one for sure.
Oh, 100%. And especially for you guys, nothing in the match should ever be taken lightly. Nothing in the match should. I'm looking over here at West Michigan because, granted, I was following this game too. I saw West Michigan was giving up a great fight, especially with Justice Williams. He debuted against Western Michigan because I think he was part of the gambling probe that happened this past season. Granted, 5 games, I think he's either all come off the bench or he started. He's averaging 19, about 20 points a game on 52% shooting. And this kid came out of nowhere and gave Toledo a fit. I think he scored like 30 points against Toledo, which was absolutely absurd.
Big time performance there.
Yeah, from that Western Michigan kid. UMass, I actually have not seen UMass play basketball at all because, granted, they've always been an independent.
Yeah.
Them joining the MAC is actually not that bad of a thing. It gives like a unique spin. It's more competition. It's like what happened with Marshall back in the 90s and 2000s.
Right. Yeah. And it was an interesting one for Bowling Green, too. I mean, to go to overtime and then literally just a 1-point win off of a late shot for the Falcons. It was a close margin. Yeah. I feel like from the common results that we've seen, I feel like we're kind of primed here for another classic. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I
do want to ask what the odds are. You think that it's going to be a split? I mean, the last 2 years, it's been split. The win. Or 2 years ago, it was a loss in Toledo for BG, or a win for Toledo at home, and then a win for BG at home. Last year, it was a win for BG on the road and a win for Toledo on the road. What are your predictions? What are the odds this year you think that it stays at a split? Because I would argue that these are the most even these two teams have been in the last 2 years.
I can see that, yes, and I honestly do think it will split. I do give Toledo that home advantage just because Savage Arena is one of if not the best stadium to play in the MAC. It's always loud. Everything's loud in that arena. The environment is great. I mean, the game against Ohio, for example, and also the games against Western Michigan too. It was loud in there.
Yeah, I mean, especially
it's always going to be the home court advantage and the crowd noise. That's always going to rattle a team. How you handle that adversity when you're either away or home is going to be different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think what Ben mentioned is really interesting just because, both teams losing at home last year just showed you like the intensity to this rivalry, because it's like on one hand you've always got that road environment you have to play in, but at the same time there's not going to be a game all year that your fans can travel better for on the road than the one 25 minutes up or down I-75. So yeah, I mean, environment I'm sure is going to be another classic as always. I have no doubts on that one.
Oh yeah, no, I plan on it to be an absolute classic. Whenever Toledo has played BG, especially in the more recent years in any sport, it's just always been a classic. It's always been a barn burner.
Yeah, and the common results are what is really cementing to me. I don't think, standings say one thing in MAC play, but the most games a team has played is 7. There's so many games left that Toledo being 5 spots ahead of Bowling Green right now doesn't give me any inclination that it's going to be a lopsided game or anything. You look at the conference record, the team's only separated by 1 win, 1 loss, going a different way. So I'm just excited, to be honest. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for most people, is it should just be a really competitive game, probably as I think as competitive as you'll see this week for sure, at least.
Yeah, no. I agree. I agree. It's a MAC conference. Every game is going to be at least competitive for a good bit. It's always going to be exciting. I look at this. Toledo and BG only separated by a game in MAC conference standings. Granted, there's still a lot of conference left to play. You still have at least 11. You still have at least 11, maybe 12 games, considering the fact. And it's going to be a long road on who gets to go to Cleveland.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, both teams projecting right now to be in the picture, but, Northern Illinois, UMass not far behind. They're only 1 win lower than, the next 3 ahead of them, positions 6 through 8 right now in tournament position. So, I mean, it really, still very wide open as to the landscape for Cleveland come tournament time. But if you had to give me your best estimation, what you think the final result for Saturday is going to be, and who the most valuable player in the game is going to be, by your estimation right now, still about a week out, what would you tell me?
Yeah, well, considering how both teams have fared against similar foes, I mean, you look at a game against Ohio for BG's been decided by 10. Ohio for UT's was 16. Granted, it was a close game for the majority of that time. Then Toledo just got on a groove. I look at games against the top dog in the conference in Miami of Ohio, where both teams lost. It was a majority competitive game. You guys lost by 10. We lost by 14. Games like Kent State, 3-point losses respectively, 87-84 for us, 96-93 for you guys. It's always going to be a very competitive game. Everything's going to be competitive. It's a MAC conference. It's matching for a reason.
Gotta love the action.
Toledo will pull this out, but it's going to be closer than they think, closer than everybody thinks. In my opinion, I think it's going to be a 3-point game.
3-point game. That's for calling, huh?
I'm going to go 79-76 Toledo.
79-76 Toledo. Pretty decent scoring affair here, huh?
Yeah, pretty decent. I mean, both teams are going to get out of the gate. I'd have to assume. I mean, it's BGUT, but you also got to think like, there's going to be moments where both offenses will stall at some point and the defenses will shine. You said the streakiness will occur. Both teams are going to hit a stone wall.
Right. It's kind of a question, I mean, you look at recent games, especially, which version of either team you're going to get. I'm inclined to think we're going to see the better version of both teams. My personal thinking, just because of the way the depth is played, I could see the result going anyway. I think Bowling Green's big men are going to make a difference in a way that the depth beyond Sam Towns hasn't made at the same time as Towns in a lot of their bigger games this year. So I see it being a little closer even. I could see it going like 2 or 1 points. My gut is saying like Bowling Green 68, Toledo 66. I think they're going to split again. And I think they're going to take it on the road again. That's my gut call right now. Fellows in the studio with me, do you guys have any thoughts? What do you think?
I do think it is going to be more high scoring. I do also think that you guys are right. It's going to be within 3 points. I honestly I don't know who it could be. I think I would give the edge in offense to Toledo. I would definitely get the edge in defense to Bowling Green. If they're able to stay out of foul trouble, will be a big piece. This is the great part that we get to wait and see. I'd say that the game's going to be in the upper 70s probably. So I think Dan's right with that.
My question is, with Bowling Green and Toledo both being in the top 3 in turnover margin in the MAC, will that be a deciding factor down the stretch, I should say, in this game? What are you thinking?
I honestly think it will be. Turnovers can lead to a series of momentum swings. I saw it firsthand against Ohio, where Ohio just couldn't stop turning the ball over, and Toledo got out to a massive lead in the second half. That all in all sealed the game for Toledo. But then also I've seen Toledo keep missing possessions and keep turning over the ball, and that led to a bigger hole. Keep digging themselves into a hole. I think the turnovers will be a big factor. You just gotta live it. You just gotta make the easy play. You gotta make the smart play. Take the risks, sure, but those risks you can fall on a double-edged sword.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, and then for me, really, I kind of agree with what Holden had to say. I think it'll be kind of like in the mid-60s probably. I mean, for me, I'd say 65-62 Bowling Green. I think, no way that this isn't a one-score game, but I think these team stars, like Javonte Campbell and Meyer Wolf for Bowling Green, and then of course Sonny Wilson and Leroy Blyden Jr. for Toledo. I think all 4 of those guys are going to be huge factors on this game next week.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Blyden finally got out of a shooting slump against Ohio. He was shooting below 30%, but then he popped off for about 50% at 24 points. Sonny Wilson scored 25 against Ohio. Sonny Wilson is a guy who will comfortably score 20 points without even breaking a sweat.
And that's just that kind of scoring threat's dangerous.
Like Craig or Blyden is good.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add looking ahead at this one as we kind of wrap up the segment here, Dan?
It's nothing really forward to look at except for looking at the actual product on January 24th. There's nothing really much to look at. You can compare the teams by paper, and you can guess who has the advantage or not, but nothing will be set sure until the teams meet up face to face.
Absolutely, definitely one where we can speculate all we want as the quote-unquote experts, but we will have to just wait and see until that one comes around. Anything you want to plug from you guys at WXUT while you're here?
The Toledo Sports Hour is always a good one on Tuesday mornings with Anthony Kruska. It's always a good one. My personal show, this is a shameless plug for myself, but I have a show Tuesday nights from 9 to 11 about professional wrestling. It's called Running the Ropes. That's Tuesdays from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And there's so much more to think of. We have Running Our Mouths, which is a morning talk show on Wednesday mornings. They talk everything about sports, from baseball and football and whatnot. You have so many different shows. It's great from both sides, honestly.
Gotta love it. We here at WBGU, and in particular Falcon Media and Falcon Media Sports Network, always advocates for our own as well as our other peers in student media. So once again, Dan Allen from WXUT. Dan, thanks for joining us today. Great to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good one.